Good day everyone and welcome to another vlog for the Exodus 7 to 12 KJV project. Today I get to share a few things with you guys, so I'm going to try and run through these as fast as possible without, kind of just leaving you in the dust. So let's get into it. So this week I was able to actually get back to visual work on Exodus as well, which was really awesome. It was great to work on the sound for a few weeks, and it was great to work on that whole defocus thing. But I'm thankful to, for lack of a better term, be back in the saddle. It's really cool. So this week I managed to do 2 shots. Not the longest shots, but it was just great to get back to the visual side of things. I worked on something else more in the start of the week, which is what I will show you guys after we get to all of this stuff. So first things first, I still finished out the week with audio work, and I added a crowd mumbling sound. You can see that it's, let me just get this thing to, there we go. You can see over here that there's a crowd mumbling sound, and the reason I have that is because the scripture says, I'm going to put it on screen. Scripture says that, and Moses knew and did as the Lord commanded, and he lifted up the rod and smote the waters that were in the river in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants. So there was most probably a crowd forming as Moses spoke, because obviously it had to be, kind of vocal about it. So a lot of people would have heard him. I mean, it's also like a valley, whatever. So the point is that he was heard, and because he was heard, people came to see what was going on. In addition to that, there would also be servants around the river anyway, because they had to get water, they had to wash stuff, they had to wash themselves, they had to water the crops. It was a very, very busy place anyway, which is probably why God struck the river as well. So I added a crowd mumbling sound, and I want you guys to hear it as it is alone. Basically, all that is I just used stuff from from Esther. I used stuff from I think Genesis as well. I used stuff from the tutorials. I just used as much natural speaking as I had available and just layered it, pitching some a little bit and all that, just to get that general crowd sound. Because in a crowd, nobody is thinking, oh, gotta make a crowd sound. No, they really just talk. So if you want to fake a crowd, you have to get real people just talking. And if you're the only person that you have access to in terms of recordings, then you will use that. Unfortunately, there's no crowd talking sound within the MIDI system. So unfortunately, you can't take that. So anyway, so this is just a very, very cool crowd sound. You can even see that it varies at various points. I don't know why it fades out here. I think some of the files were shorter. You can see they end quite abruptly. But it really is a good crowd sound. I mean, just listen to it again. It's great. Absolutely great. Sounds kind of buzzy, So anyway, moving on. So the first shot for the week came right after this. I'm just going to get that down again. Okay, so over here, just want to stretch this out like that. Okay, so the first shot is Pharaoh's reaction as Moses is talking, and he gets angrier and angrier, but he's also kind of in shock because he thought the thing would be over. At least that's my guess. He would think it's over because he told him to take a hike, and more than once. So what happens is he's angry and shocked, and then we fade to the shot where Moses gets ready to strike the river. So of course he first acknowledges, and there's the crowd, first acknowledges that God is the one that empowers him. And then we have that. There's a thing in anime where they kind of tend to repeat something dramatic, a few times. So I went with that. So it goes like boom, boom. Yeah. And then slow motion. With the Lazy Man's motion blur, I wanted it to look slow motion, I didn't want to frame interpolate it so that it would look like it's supposed to move that slowly. Interestingly enough, you see the eyes here look fine. Now, as they go back, you can see that he actually looks in the same direction. Now, what happened initially was I had made the sequence, but I had bound his gaze to the camera. So when the camera was over here, he would technically be trying to look through his beard and through his chin and all that kind of stuff to see the camera, because that's what a rig does. It doesn't think, oh, we are eyes, we can't go that way. It doesn't respond that way. You can put limitations in it, but yeah. Anyway, so he had this weird possessed kind of look about him for about half the shot. From about here, and you could see it in the shot. It wasn't like it was something that would be invisible, because only about here would you start seeing his pupil showing. Let me show you. Hold on. See how clear it would be. From about there, his eyes would be completely white. And you would see it. It's not something that goes unnoticed. And only about here would you start seeing the iris and the pupil and stuff like that. And only about here does he look normal. So it was really creepy. It was really, really creepy. So I re-rendered it from about there. Hold on. From roughly there. And it made a big difference. It made an absolutely huge difference. I mean, you can see that he actually looks like a normally functioning human being. Anyway, so as you can see also, the lines look a bit different, and that's because I used the edge tool. The reason I used the edge tool was because of this little crowd over there. It's too much detail. Freestyle doesn't like that much detail. So what happens is it overloads. It says mesh loading 99%. And if I don't stop it, it will not just lock down my computer, it will actually cause it to freeze, which means I would have to restart it. And I'm not, like this hardware expert or whatever, but I don't think it's good for your computer to be dragged down to such an extent that it can't do anything. But anyway, so that had to be changed. But I didn't just use the edge tool here. I also had to use it over here with this shot with Pharaoh. But I could incorporate Freestyle. Now, the reason I had to knock out Freestyle for the most part is this. Yikes. Now, what happens here is because of the size of the scene, because of the amount of objects in the scene, Blender has a way of kind of looking through surface into the solidity. Let's call it solidity of the object itself. So what happens is you get this semi-breakthrough kind of thing around the curvature. I think you can see it in the viewport as well, but let's just not go there for a second. So what I did is I first reduced the resolution, which helps a lot when it comes to Freestyle, ironically. But it didn't solve the problem. So I tried to select only certain edges, but that also didn't solve the problem. And I'm not talking about edge mark. I'm talking about the types of edges that you get. But that didn't solve the problem either. So finally, what I did is I settled for using Freestyle, but only on the marked edges, because everything else would just shine completely through. And even here on the head of the cobra, you can see in the final shot the cobra is more visible. You can see that I deselected some of the lines that would cross into the mouth to make sure that it's not visible. I'm actually going to show you the shot so you can see what I mean when I say that Blender kind of looks through a shape that causes this issue. So I don't know what causes it exactly, as in the math and the feature and the whatever, but it's not the clipping. I've adjusted the clipping. So it's definitely not that. Anyway, let me show you the edit. Okay, so here we have him in his reactionary pose. So I'm going to switch it to textured mode so we have a nice and bright image. And now I'm going to hit edit. There you go. You can see that this right here, these edges over here, it's kind of bright, but you get the point. You can see that these edges are supposed to be behind the snake. You can see that these edges are supposed to be behind this selected edge over here. It's very orange. You can't really see it. The one that just deselected over here. You can see that these things are not supposed to be visible. For some reason, Blender sees through a shape like this. I mean, see that over there. You can see it. And it's not because it's wireframe. It's not because it's render all edges. I don't know why it does this. I really don't. About the eyes. I don't know why it does that. I don't know why the texturing looks like that. Obviously, you know that it's not supposed to look like this. I really don't know why the textures behave like that. Maybe I shifted them or something. I don't know, but yikes. I also did another render when I saw that the first time. You just love it. Hysterical. Anyway. So this is why Freestyle doesn't always work the way it's supposed to work. Yikes. And you would think that increasing the resolution would solve the problem, but nope. Nope. So this is just what the final looks like. You can see that the edge tool has an advantage in the way that it has these soft, wispy edges sometimes when it rounds off an object. I mean, just look at the eyes over here. It kind of just sketches it back there. And you can see here at the top of the crown, you can see that there's this wispy line going out there. It's just absolutely gorgeous. I love what the edge tool can do. So what I also did this week is I tried to get a water simulation looking good. And for that, I needed Moses to swing the stick. Oh yeah. In the post, I talk about why I specifically chose this method of swinging the stick to hit the river. So if you want to understand why I picked what I picked, you can check that out. In order to have the motion for this, I actually filmed myself swinging a cane. And it works really well. So unfortunately, the results for the water was not all that great. Let me see if I have an example, working example here. No, not in this file. I deleted everything. I tried the fluid sim. I tried various things, and it just didn't work. Seriously, it just didn't work. And it's not because the fluid sim is bad, and it's not because the other stuff, is useless or anything like that. But when you hit water with a simple stick, it just doesn't make this incredible splash. It doesn't. For the most part, you get spray. You get an initial splash that's not very big, and then you get a lot of spray. So it's really not, this big deal. So honestly and truly, I'm just going to do something manual to get something that looks good out of it. And one of the things I want to do is to use a spiky type splash. Something that would look like this. Let me just... starting out with something like this, similar to this. Just make this thing double-sided, so that's not the problem. But anyway, you get the picture. So it's just about getting that initial strike splash, And then you can put the camera like under here looking up, and there can be like this wave of spray going over that turns red, and then you see the whole river being red and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. There's a lot that still needs to go into this, but this is the general thing I feel led to go for. So yeah, I'm just going to save this so I don't lose it because I really like the way this spike splash looks. Anyway, moving on back to the edit. So back in here, we have this cool transition, and then we have the water. There we have Moses standing by the water. What I would like to do is I would like in this moment, right about there, close to the end of the shot, I want his hand to tilt the stick to go through to the point, so it looks similar to the strike, and of course make him swing it with an action background. And just before the impact, you would get back to the 3D shot so you can actually get the splash. So there's quite a lot that still needs to be done, but I really like how this looks so far. By the way, Aaron is in the shot. Again, he's back there, but he is actually in the shot. I'm not just saying that he is. Let me show you. I was actually hoping he would be in camera, but nope. There he is. So see, he is in the scene. Unfortunately, just not in a very active way at the moment, but it doesn't matter. The point is he is in there. So moving on. So this week I started working with something called color grading, which pretty much means, in the broadest sense of it, to color balance and to be creative and so on, to get the right feel for a project. And in my case, I really feel like the colors and all that kind of stuff is already done. All that needs to be done is the correction or the improvement. And honestly, this is not to sound all full of myself, but there's really not a lot to do, personally speaking. I don't know what else to do. Let me put it that way. So this is just the difference that is between the added contrast and slight saturation boost and just the normal one, because I already pushed the normal one as far as I could possibly go. So it just removes that slight bright milkiness from the render, as you can see. So this is without, this is with. You can see that there is definitely a difference. It's not major, but it makes a major difference when you watch it. I'm telling you right now. A colorist is definitely a necessary step in a production. But on the topic of adjustment, this adjustment layer tends to crash whenever it's over nothing. And that was a bug that was in the build that I used. So I switched to 2.79 to be able to use the adjustment layer regardless of what is under it, as well as the update to the audio system. And it's more of it is like an update. It's not really a reconfiguration. And of course, the VSE got a slight layout adjustment, and there's also changes made to the way that videos are encoded, which is really cool. So there has been quite a few changes made for 2.79. So that's what I'm using for the edit from now on. I really strongly discourage switching between versions and stuff for a project. But in this case, it prevented me from going forward, and I wasn't about to stick in color strips just to compensate for the adjustment layer because it kept crashing. I mean, it's stupid. And it didn't just crash over nothing, it crashed in general as well. So it wasn't a solution. Really was not a solution. So anyway, I'm on 2.79 now for the edit, and I'm still using 2.77a for the animation and all that kind of stuff. And I'll put all this stuff about that in the post as well. So moving on to the rest of the week. So for Pharaoh's shot, I wanted to add some action lines, to show that he's like, but his movements were too stoic. So it just didn't fit. But I do like the look of it. In this case, I used, I think, normal or reflection coordinates on the cone to create this sharp, super straight, long line effect, because I wanted a lot of lines, not just a few lines. If you want only a few lines, the other method from the action lines tutorial is really the better way to go. But if you want lines to move and you want them to be straight and sharp in various thickness, reflection or normal coordinates is definitely the way to go. Same method in the rest of the way, just change the coordinates. So I made this thing faster, and I did a 3D version of it with Pharaoh and all that kind of stuff, and it's just, I can show you what it looks like. It looks great as a single shot. I mean, look at that. just like, oh, what? It looks great, but it didn't work as video. So I chucked the lines. I really did. Just didn't work. So last week I spoke about using the bouquet blur, and I wanted a defocus node that was able to shift smoothly. In other words, I wanted, if, stupid example, let's say a character is browsing books on a bookshelf. You want the book that the character is looking at to be in focus, and you want the rest to be out of focus. I wanted something that could do that. And in order to make that, you had to have something that was more flexible in terms of depth. And that's what this is. As you can see, this is a very strong bouquet blur that's centered around the point that is on his hand. But you can see that it's very progressive. And that's exactly what I was going for. So this week I worked on a node that could do this. But unfortunately, this is only a node that is usable for surreal type scenes like this one would be, like a dream state, because it's not super accurate. The second you put it in a high detail scene with foreground, background elements that are transparent and stuff, you just get the biggest mess. It's just not practical. So now I have a node that's fit for realism, for surrealism, but I also have another one that is more accurate, but it has that slideshow fade. It's not super dynamic. So this one shifts to the camera and then back forward. And there were some issues around the hand, but whatever. Like I said, this is something you would use more for surrealism. So yeah, that's it for this week. I hope you guys have an awesome week. Have a great one, and God bless you.